Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for sending in questions for Ask an Archivist Day. This is one of my favorite days of the year because we get to kind of share a little more about our profession and explain what we do, what it is we do, and why we love our jobs so much. So I'm making a quick video to go through some of the questions that you guys sent in. Again, really appreciate that you actually sent me things to answer because it means I actually get to do this and talk about my job, which I love very much. So a couple people, at least one on Tumblr and one on Facebook, I think, mentioned nitrate, nitrate film. Um, and nitrate film is has a reputation for being very flammable. Uh, and this is just silver nitrate in general. So silver nitrate has this very it's a film base that you use, and so you basically it supports the photosensitive part of the film, so it kind of is like your base. It's like your backing, your stock paper or whatever type thing, and it backs you up, and unfortunately, nitrate kind of has this ability to light on fire. It doesn't go very well. So with nitrate, nitrate is unfortunately highly flammable, silver nitrate, and if in the correct conditions, it can unfortunately catch on fire, and that is generally not a good condition, especially considering that a lot of these films were stored in facilities that were not climate controlled. So as you can imagine, that's not a good combination. You've got films that are not climate controlled being put together in these places. All of them together, rack after rack after rack of reels just kind of lined up, no climate control whatsoever, so it can get warm in there, and if it gets warm, there's a chance that something could spark, and where there are sparks, there could be fire, especially given that nitrate exists. So with nitrate film, our best bet for storage is you have to keep it in a cool, dry location. Anything with film, you don't want to have it anywhere that's wet, just because, or high humidity anyway, because it is film, it is an image. Anything that's photographic or film or audio, you really want to keep it in a cool, dry location. Obviously you don't want any humidity, and if you keep it colder, it's actually more likely to last long, which is true for just about anything, from the food you put in your freezer to the human body. If you, for example, freeze a person, if you take a person who has suffered an accident, if you put them into like slight hypothermia, their brain actually has more time to heal itself, and they're actually less likely to sustain like major brain damage. So applying that to film is a logical step as well, especially it's a film that has a type of base that's flammable. So yeah, basically, long story short, don't be like Fox Studios in Fort Lee in the 40s. Put it cool, dry place. Freezers are really cool, actually. Those would be great. A lot of studios used to use actual like vaults, nitrate vaults. So yeah, nitrate. Woo, fun. Have I found any history memes yet? No. I shouldn't say I haven't found them in my personal work. That hasn't, I haven't come across anything that's mimetic in personal work. However, there is a really interesting book that I do know about, that's available for free online. It's actually, I think Know Your Meme has a link to it as well. It is from the 1840s, and it actually describes what we would consider memes from the late 18th, early 19th century. So it's actually, I can put a link in the description to this video because it's actually really cool. It actually does describe what we would consider memes, things that catch on for a very short while, usually of a verbal or pictorial nature, and then like flash, they're gone. So there are historical memes, they exist. And then of course it goes around on Tumblr a lot. There's always that pretty famous one of how somebody compiled all of those different drawings of knights fighting snails. So yeah, there are historical memes. They are out there. I haven't personally discovered any new ones in my work. I'm relatively new to the profession though, so who knows? Let's see. Yes, it does feel absolutely amazing to hold history in my hands and preserve it. It is a lot of fun. you feel like a very heavy sense of responsibility when you're holding and working with historical papers and objects, and it's just an amazing experience. And if you're into history at all, I really would suggest considering it as a profession if you really like the primary sources and all of that. So definitely worth it. And thank you for thanking me for doing this job, because it really does not pay very well. So someone has to do it. Otherwise, we're going to lose these things. So thank you. I actually really do enjoy this. Okay, that's actually, and then this last one is actually quite interesting. Disinfecting pages. So disinfecting things that have been exposed to bacteria is actually, that's an interesting thing, because usually in archives what we work with is mold and other fungi. And usually in the case of mold, what we do is we suit up and basically in full bodysuits, kind of, we look very hazmat-ish. I actually did this a couple weeks ago. I was moving some film reels that were covered in mold, and I basically had almost a full hazmat suit on. I had the whole Tyvek suit, surgical mask, hairnet, goggles on my face, and I was wearing garbage bags over my shoes. And that was all just because of mold. We had to make sure that the mold, the spores didn't get on us or in us in any way, because that can happen, and mold, as you're probably well aware, can cause all sorts of respiratory and other issues. So you have to be really cautious with mold. What we then did was we put the affected reels into Ziploc bags, and we sealed them, and that way they became safe to handle. And that's similar to encapsulation. So here's some things I encapsulated. My dad had these he went to a Star Trek convention in the 70s, and he actually got these iron-ons, these very rare iron-ons nowadays, and so I encapsulated them, which encapsulation just means you're putting it in a plastic or really mylar sleeve. These are actually comic book sleeves that I used for this purpose, on these particular things, and you put them in there. It's a lot like lamination, but it's not permanent, and it doesn't require heat, because obviously if you use heat with paper, you're not going to, you don't want to run the risk of damaging the materials with the heat. So these are preserved nicely through encapsulation. In the case of a book, though, with this, what you would do is you would give it to the folks who work in conservation, and they know how to remove things like mold and mildew and probably bacteria. So the first step with books, if they're exposed to anything, is you actually have to make sure they're dry, because mold will grow when they're wet, and it's not going to clean up unless they're dry. So you want to make sure, again, cool, dry location. Make sure that there's airflow in the place that you keep things, because if you just shove them in a closet or whatever, they're not going to, get that proper airflow exposure, and they're going to be more likely to grow mold, or anything else, including bacteria. So in this case, what you want to do, again, if you got it on your book, you have to kind of wait till it's dry. Anything that's exposed to any sort of mold, mildew, bacteria, etc., make sure it's dry first. Especially, you can even, again, put it in a Ziploc bag at first, just keep it separate, and then once you've got it, kind of secured in a way to protect it, you can even try putting it in the freezer to dry it faster. That actually does help. Once you've got it in the freezer, then you can pull it out and then thaw it, and then place absorbent sheets between each page of the book, and then you can have it dried out nicely. You can also, so once it's dry, then you can actually go and remove the mold. So in some cases, mold, mildew, bacteria, you can actually use a cloth or a brush to kind of get things off. You can also get vacuum hose attachments. They actually will work as well to some extent, but you have to be very gentle. You want to be very careful. You can even kill it with rubbing alcohol, denatured alcohol. But again, be very cautious with this. If you have something that you're really concerned about, that it's infectious, get the book to conservation. They will help you, because that is actually what their specialty is, to actually take these things and conserve them, and then send them back over to us so we can preserve them and make them accessible for research if they're safe to be handled. Because they actually are trained in doing this, and they know how to remove anything, including bacteria. Again, though, bacteria is not really something that's going to happen very much with books. You're much more likely to have mold or mildew. If you're going to have bacteria, on artifacts, it's probably more in the line of archaeological work as opposed to archival work. Archaeologists definitely, as we've learned from opening many tombs over the years, have a little more experience with this bacteria exposure than we do. So with these, again, it's probably just best if you really are worried if it's like serious and you see mold or mildew growing. I can again give you a link on how to remove mildew and mold from books. But if it's more serious and it's really a big deal, definitely, if you really have to have that book, send it to a conservator. They will know exactly what to do with regards to that. So I think that's all of it. I think I got through everything. So, yeah. So thank you very much for asking me stuff. I love talking about my job. It's one of my favorite things to do is archive. It makes me very happy that I get to do this for a living. Even though the pay's not great, it's something I'm really passionate about and really love doing. And it's just so great, and I love sharing my profession with other people. So the more I can talk about archiving, the better. So I will see you all next year, or sooner than that. Bye-bye!